Pick up this book today at 501.gregvan.com and learn how to make more money if you're a contractor. There's plenty of other useful tips that will definitely help you with your business.
If you've been in the construction business as long as I have, there's a good chance that you've heard all sorts of construction excuses. And even if you've been in business, I'm sure you've heard all sorts of excuses. In the construction industry, you're not dealing with a bunch of college graduates here. Most of these people graduated from high school. They're not interested in seeking higher education. And eventually they'll turn into contractors, and that could be you, who you are right now watching this video. You're not dealing with people who, want to be controlled. These people, most of the people in construction, I call them free spirits. They have their own will to do what they want when they want to. And if you want a good example of that, just hire 5 people, put an ad out in the paper, hire 5 construction workers, and there's a good chance you'll see what I'm talking about. I've heard more excuses from these people than you could possibly ever imagine. I actually hired one guy, and he was late almost every day. And he had excuses, and I told him, I said, as long as you had an excuse I've never heard before, I won't get mad at you. This guy was extremely creative. I want to share one of his excuses with you, just to give you an idea what I'm talking about. He was late the past couple of days. I told him, I said, if you're late one more time, you're gone. I'm just tired of it. But I used to tell him this all the time. He knew I was kind of, I was mad, but he knew I wasn't going to let him go because the guy I was working for needed him, was very dependent upon this other guy. So he would fill in every once in a while when my boss, the general contractor, didn't have much work for him. One day, me and the general contractor and my friend Bob, who worked with me, were standing there. And the guy pulls up in his car, and he gets out of the car and he goes, "You're not going to believe what happened to me." And I said, "Okay, let's hear it. If you got a good excuse, I'm not going to get mad at you." He knew this, So he proceeds to tell me this story that's just out of this world. He tells me he's pulling out of his residence where he lived. He gets pulled over by the police. Now, mind you, this guy didn't even have a driver's license, okay? He gets pulled over by the police. If he did have a driver's license, he was lying to me. He told me he didn't have a driver's license. Gets pulled over by the police. The police impound his car. He's driving, he's with the tow truck driver. Now, most of the time, if your car is impounded, you're not going to be in the car with the tow truck driver. I don't know. I've just never seen that happen. Maybe that is how it works. I don't know. He's driving. He told me that he convinced the tow truck driver to let him go, let the car go. And let's face it, this doesn't happen, And again, I could be wrong here. So the tow truck driver lets him go. He's driving, and he got to work. That's why he was late. And I proceeded to tell him that he was only 3 minutes late. And he stopped, and he realized that he'd kind of been caught, because normally he was later. I think even in his mind he thought he was later. So this guy had more excuses than you could imagine, and he was extremely creative. You're going to run into that in the construction business, and probably any other business. You need to take a firm stance. Again, if this is what you want to do. This was the last guy. He came to work one day, and I was going to fire him that day. And his girlfriend died that night, and this was true. It was in the newspapers, and he was in jail. And I told the guy I was working for that I was done work. He was fired no matter what. And that was the last time he ever worked for me. But these are the type of people you're going to find in the construction business: drifters, con artists, you name it. They're here. And if you let this stuff go, if you're not watching the store, you could find yourself dealing with some difficult employees in the future. So if you want to get rid of the problems, get rid of the excuses, don't let them keep going, don't let these things build up. Find another employee, find another person to work for. And again, I just told you a story about an employee when I'm talking about construction excuses. What about when you start to hear excuses from the people you're working for? Again, they're in the business, they're all over the place, you know, just like a bunch of little dots all over a polka dotted tablecloth, whatever you want to say. This is what is in any business. How you handle it and deal with it will make the difference in your construction company. Now, something else I'd like to say too. I know this video is a little longer than normal. Whenever you're hearing excuses from your employees, can you imagine the excuses that they're telling the people that you're working for? If you're doing a bathroom remodel and this guy's got a beer on the job, drinking his beer, and the woman of the house comes up and says, "Hey, what are you doing? Drinking on the job?" "Oh no, that's not my beer." You know, "Well, whose is it?" "I don't know. Did your husband leave this?" Can you imagine her husband coming home that day and the wife asking him about him drinking a beer and you know, on the property? I mean, you can work this out in your head. Construction excuses are not a good thing. If you can get rid of them, you will eliminate a lot of problems in the future. Trust me on that one.
Check out some of our other websites today.